My name's Dr. Ryan Marchman, and I'm here to talk to you about stress. I'm in the business of human performance, human potential, and I've been in this business since I was 5 years old. I got my start a long time ago. When I was 5, I became very ill. I nearly died. I was rushed to the regional hospital in Gainesville, Georgia. I spent 7 days in the pediatric intensive care unit where the doctors told me they didn't know what was wrong, or they told my parents that they didn't know what was wrong, but there was nothing that they could do and that I was going to die. But I survived, and no one knows how or why. But that experience, it was a near-death experience, I call it my near-life experience, set me on a journey of curiosity. And I set out to learn the secrets of illness and wellness, human potential. And this journey lasted for 20 years after my near-life experience. 2 decades of study in every subject imaginable, from the far left brain, like biochemistry, physics, molecular biology, to the far right brain, like human potential, metaphysics, spirituality, and psychology, and everything in between. I learned healing arts from the Far East and from the West. I spent 15 years in martial arts. I became a master martial artist. I studied all around the world. I traveled and taught in the United States and abroad. And this journey, this learning, lasted for 20 years until I discovered vitalistic chiropractic. That's a different story that we don't have time for tonight. But all this to say that I've been taking care of people for a long time in a lot of different capacities. And everything I've done has brought me to the point where I'm focused on helping people live extraordinary lives, right? And I can say that because I've lived an extraordinary life. I've had a lot of incredible experiences. I've had a lot of terrible experiences. I've run the gamut of human experience, from bliss and total oneness and connection to near death and despair, right? And that makes me uniquely qualified to talk about stress. So when I was on the phone and I'm told I had 15 minutes to talk, I thought, how can I take more than 20 years of learning and a decade of clinical experience and thousands of patient interactions and condense that into 15 minutes, right? And I think I've done it. You may want to write these down because I have to move kind of fast. But here they are. It's Dr. Ryan's 3-point strategy for dealing with stress and living an extraordinary life. Point number 1, resource your body. Become fully resourced. What I mean is, in order for you to handle stress, you need to become resilient. You need to be able to adapt to stressors in your life because they will inevitably occur. You can't avoid all stress all the time. So when stress comes to you, do you have the inner resources to be able to handle it? I believe in an inside-out healing philosophy. I think the health comes from within. It doesn't come from changing the environment, but rather strengthening the body to suit a challenging environment. Does that make sense? So what are some ways that you can add resources to your body? And what I mean is things like exercise, good nutrition, hydration, sleep. Are these making sense to you? These are the things that you can do for yourself that you already know you should do for yourself that will make your body more able to adapt to stress, right? So it's pretty impossible for us to change the environment to such a degree that there is no stress at any time, right? That means we have to be strong enough to meet the stress when it comes into our lives so that it can roll off our back instead of harming us, right? So the deeper your well is, the more water you have, the slower it runs dry. We want to dig a really deep well and make sure you are fully resourced. So things like exercise strengthens your muscles, strengthens your bones, strengthens your metabolism, right? Increases your nervous system communication. Things like proper nutrition. You know that if you are what you eat, so if you don't put good raw materials inside, how can you have good building blocks, right? Things like getting enough rest. No matter how strong you are, if you don't give yourself enough time to rest and sleep and take care of yourself, you wind up becoming weak. You get sick, you get under the weather, and you get run down, right? What are some other ways that you can add resources to your life? Tell me. Hobbies, yeah. Spending time on things you care about. We'll get to that in the next point, too. What else? How about finance? If you're not fully resourced financially, you're under stress pretty much all the time, aren't you? And something happens to you and you can handle it financially, it's not stressful, but if it's a stress on you all the time, right? If you're fully resourced financially, you can also help other people better. So finance is a resource, right? I would be remiss being a chiropractor if I didn't talk about chiropractic right now. I'll just spend a couple minutes. What chiropractors do, the way I practice chiropractic, I'm a vitalistic chiropractor. That means I help people with their quality of life, and I do that by interfacing with the nervous system. So I'm a nervous system-based practitioner. The nervous system is the brain. It sits up here in the skull. And the spinal cord, which exits the skull and goes down in the bones of the spine, inside the bones, and then exits the spine as all the nerves that go out and supply all the organs and tissues of the body. So if one of the bones of the spine is not functioning properly and interferes with communication through the spinal cord, it means your body isn't able to communicate with your brain, and your brain isn't able to communicate with your body at 100%. That means you're less able to adapt to stressors in your environment because your body can't quite comprehend its environment. So what a chiropractor does is remove this interference from the brain and body to brain, allow your coordinating system to function properly. The body starts to heal. Does all that make sense? So in addition to chiropractic, you have massage and body work, right? Exercise, nutrition, all the things we mentioned. Making time for hobbies, spending time in nature. What about meditation? Meditation or a spiritual practice if you have that inclination, right? So those are all ways of building your internal resources so that when stressful events happen to you, you can handle them. Okay, that's number one, become fully resourced. Yeah, Dr. Ryan's 3-point strategy for dealing with stress and living an extraordinary life. Point number 2, clarify what's important. Clarify what's important. Every human being lives according to a hierarchy of values, of things that are most important to things that are least important in your life. And it's really important to get an idea of where you are on this spectrum. You could list every single human activity in this list, and the things you value more would be at the top, and the things you value least would be at the bottom, right? But it's really important to start making this list for yourself and find out what are your real top values, the top 4 or 5 things that you value on a high level. And when I say values, I don't mean social platitudes. You know, when you ask people what they value, they say, oh, I value integrity and honesty and my family and going to church. And, you know, they say all the things you're supposed to say, right? But when I say what do you value, I mean what do you really value? What do you spend your time doing? What do you surround yourself with in your physical space? What do you spend money on? What do you spend time thinking about and bringing about? What do you spend time creating? Those are the things that are your true values, and whether you like it or not, or whether you admit it or not, you are going to live according to that hierarchy of values. Okay? Now, the reason it's important to clarify these for you is because you may be injecting somebody else's values into your life and trying to live that way, and you'll live unfulfilled, right? Now, once you've clarified your hierarchy of values and you really know what the things that are important for you, the next step is to make a list of all your day-to-day activities. And you can make a mental list if you like. If it helps you to write lists, that's fine too. Every single one of your day-to-day activities, and categorize them. Are these things that I enjoy doing and they inspire me and I like them? If take that category and set it to the side, they're okay. And all the other activities that are uninspiring, they're draining to you, you don't like doing them, right? You need to make sure you know what they are, and they're things you have to do on a day-to-day basis, right? So they're really important for you because these uninspiring activities will drain you and you'll live an unfulfilled life. So there are 3 ways you can deal with these activities. And if you don't deal with them, you'll be fighting with them for the rest of your life. Number 1 is, if it's not something that you really love and value, it is something that somebody else really loves and values. For example, I hate accounting. I won't do it. But my accountant loves to be an accountant, right? So I delegate that task to her. So if you are doing tasks on a day-to-day basis that aren't inspiring and are not fulfilling to you, if you can find somebody who can do that job, and it is what they like to do, then delegate that task to them, right? It could be between coworkers, it could be family members. If you have the financial resources, you can hire out for other things, right? So that's the first way of dealing with this, is delegate to somebody who does have that thing as the highest value, right? Step number 2, if you can't delegate it for whatever reason, and it's something that you have to do and you can't pass off to somebody else for whatever reason, financial or logistical, or maybe you're just by yourself, then you can really determine if that's something that actually has to get done. Okay? Because you may be able to drop this activity completely that's uninspiring to you, and it may actually improve your efficiency. We do a lot of things every day that we think we should do but don't really matter. Right? And once you clarify what's really important and what's not, a lot of those things will fall away. We'll talk about that in the next step. But if it's something that you can't delegate, and it's something that you can't just forget about, and you have to do it, comes to the third step. This is something you must do. Otherwise, you'll be fighting with yourself the rest of your life, and you'll be under stress. If you have these unfulfilling activities that you know you have to do and you can't delegate, the only way to move forward with them is to connect them to what really does inspire you, right? So think about your top 4 or 5 list of values. Think about this uninspiring, draining activity that you don't like to do. How does that get you to there? Okay? And you make a list and you think of as many reasons, think of 100 reasons how this uninspiring activity gets you to your inspiration. It's a stepping stone to get you where you need to be, right? Now, for example, one of my highest values is the work I do with patients in my office. I love interacting with my patients. One thing I really don't find inspiring and really hate to do is paperwork. I don't like writing patient reports. I don't like putting in notes. All that stuff is a real drain on my energy, right? And since I'm the treating doctor, I can't pass off the notes to somebody else. They don't know what I did, right? So how do I connect those activities to what I really love? And I really have to think about all the reasons. Well, if I write a compelling patient report that is informative and valuable and interesting for the people who I give it to, they're more likely to make good changes in their health. I'm more likely to see them in the office more often making good changes with their health, and we're going to get progress faster, right? So I can make sure that that activity gets done because I know it really leads me to what I care about. Does that make sense? So you can do this for every uninspiring activity you have to do throughout your life. Connect it to what really inspires you, and you'll be able to move forward with greater ease. Now, once you have figured out what your highest values are, what your daily activities are, what really needs to be done, what can be delegated, and what can be dropped, the next step is also really important. Make a list every morning, make it a habit until you've done it enough times you don't need the habit anymore, of the 7 highest priority action steps you can do every day that will lead you towards your goals. Because nature abhors a vacuum. And if you don't fill your day with high priority action steps, it'll fill itself with low priority, uninspiring actions, right? You'll wind up surfing Facebook. You'll wind up piddling around and trying to fix stuff and rearrange. You'll wind up doing all the things that take time but are not essential or efficient, right? So each day, what are the 7 highest priority action steps that I can take that are going to lead me towards my highest goals, right? That'll really maximize your time. And what you'll find is a lot of those non-essential activities that you've been doing a lot don't really need to get done. They'll disappear, right? And then some of them you'll have to still do, and then you clean it up by connecting them to your highest values again. And this process goes on. It's like a dance until everything in your life is supporting your highest values. You're not doing anything that drains you and is not inspiring to you. Does that make sense? And that may mean you make drastic changes in your life, but I'm here to help you live an extraordinary life, right? Not just deal with day-to-day bothers. Okay? The last part of clarifying what's important is to get your vision on point. I always say if you want to have an effect in your community, you have to have a vision at least as big as your town. If you want to have an effect on your town, you have to have a vision at least as big as your state. If you want to have an effect on a level of a state, you have to have a vision at least as big as your nation. And if you want to have a global effect, you have to have a cosmic vision, right? So most people are really focused on tunnel vision on the day-to-day activities of life that drain them. But if you have your vision and you keep your mind set on that vision and you're doing your high priority action steps to bring you towards that vision, then the day-to-day stuff rolls off your back because it's not important to you and you know it's just a stepping stone. It's not important. It's not hampering who you are, right? Does that make sense? So clarify your vision. That's point number 2. Clarify what's important. Dr. Ryan's 3-point strategy for dealing with stress, living an extraordinary life. Point number 3, get grateful. Okay? Get grateful. Gratitude is the most powerful human force that exists. When you are grateful, you get more to be grateful for. Right? When you are grateful, you get more to be grateful for. Everything that's ever happened to you in your life has done so to bring about the highest and best learning and progress for you. Every awful thing that's ever happened, every wonderful thing that's ever happened has one purpose, and that is to help you become the ideal version of yourself. Right? Get grateful for all of the lessons that you've been given throughout life. The way this process starts, again, you make lists. You don't have to make written lists. I don't. I just think about it a lot. You can talk through it. However you process, do your lists that way. But make a list of all the terrible things that you hate that happened to you in your life. All the abuses and the traumas, all of the injustices and the humiliations and the betrayals. Make a list of all those things that have happened to you or that other people have done to you, and so on. Really focus on the ones with the greatest emotional charge, right? And then we have to balance the scales. I want you, for each one of those things that has happened, each one of those events, find the hidden benefits. Make a list of 150 things you got out of that awful experience. Okay? And I don't care how terrible it was. Like I mentioned to you before, I've been at the very bottom. I know the darkest places a human being can go. But there will come a time when that story is limiting you and is no longer allowing you to reach your potential. And when that time comes, the only way to do it is to flip the switch from terrible to terrific. So what are the hidden benefits and the awful things that have happened to you? Did it make you a stronger person? Did it make you more resilient? Did it make you tougher? Did it give you more compassion for other people? Did it give you more perspective? Those are just some, but keep going. Make a list of all of the hidden benefits until there is no more emotional charge. Then all that's left when you get to the bottom is thank you, I love you. And when you can live in that state, you are extremely powerful. Then the day-to-day stresses of life don't affect you. They roll off your back. Then you do the same thing with every amazing thing that's happened in your life. And I know you might be really attached to them and you don't want to let those things go, but it's a necessary step. Make a list of all of the hidden drawbacks of those amazing things that happened. Yes, this amazing thing came into my life. I got this, but in order to get that, I had to give up this other thing. You know, maybe if you had amazing parents, a drawback might be that you became juvenilely dependent, right? So think about all the great things that have happened to your life. Think about all the hidden drawbacks until you get back to neutral again. And you'll soon find that there's no event in your life that was good or bad. Every event is inherently neutral. And maximum growth occurs at the border between support and challenge. So every event that has happened to you in your life has brought you into that border so that you can grow and learn maximally. Does that make sense? And then when you're there, you're at the bottom and all that's left is thank you, I love you. Then you can serve in the world with a vision, with full resources. Then the things that we tend to think of as important in our day-to-day lives and stress us out, like can I pay the bills next month? That'll automatically start to take care of itself when you're fully resourced. This person said something about that person on Facebook. None of that'll matter because you're focusing on such a greater vision, such a higher plane, that you'll transcend the stresses that happen to you on a day-to-day life, right? And I know when you're in it, it's a lot harder. You know, when the kids are making noise and there's too much going on and you got to change diapers and you got to run here and there and there. But remember, keep your vision higher than the level that you're working at. And this will take care of itself as you get to there. It's like when you're driving on the road. When I was a teenager, I used to work cable television, and the guy I was working with was teaching me to drive the cable truck. And he said, put your eyes as far up on the road as you can see. And then what's in front of you will take care of itself. You don't have to watch the lines right here. Does anybody learn to drive that way, or do you watch the lines right here? Try it. Put your eyes as far ahead on the road as you can see. And the left and right, what's in front of you will take care of itself on its own. And that's the way you need to start living your life. And this is the platform for getting you there. Right. One last thing before we go on to the question and answer part is I want to do an activity to cement this attitude of gratitude into your psychology. Can we do that? Okay, so I want you to take your left hand and put it on your heart. Take your right hand, put it on top. Close your eyes. Just take a few deep breaths. Go really deep. Sink into your body. And once you felt like you've hit the bottom of your body, I want you to imagine a time when your heart was cracked wide open. It could be a time when you fell in love, or a time when you were heartbroken. It could be the best day of your life. Maybe you got married or you had a child. Or it could be the worst thing that's ever happened to you that left you broken, shattered. But just feel deeply into your experience and find that place where your heart is cracked wide open and you're laying bare before the world. And feel into this feeling, cracked wide open. And deep inside, I want you to imagine a smile coming across your lips, inner smile. And with this inner smile, tell yourself in your cracked wide open heart, thank you, I love you. Just breathe into that. Now open your eyes and come back into the room. And I want you to go out with all the love in your hands that you just experienced and serve the world. Okay? Serve the kids and the parents. Do your best to reach your highest values because that's where you're most effective. Okay? Now let's open up the floor for questions. Maybe talk about some of your particular experiences that are stressing you out. The quality of your life is determined by the quality of the questions you ask. So let's ask some quality questions.
What about managing toxic stress?
Toxic stress.
Yeah.
What makes it toxic?
I was just learning about toxic stress in a class of mine.
Mm-hmm.
I was taking all the stressors, I guess, if you lacked something in your childhood, like maybe negligence for something,
Yeah.
it makes it harder for you to deal with life stresses because you tend to stay in this toxic stress area.
Yeah. Yeah, I get it completely. So remember when I said that there'll come a time when the stories from the past will limit you and you have to transcend them to move forward?
Mm-hmm.
That's what this time is. So the things that might have happened to you in your past, like an abusive parent or a negligent parent or something, during times in your life when you perceive more challenge than support, you become precociously independent. That means you start to take care of yourself and you learn the skills and strategies to take care of yourself. And you refuse help from others. And you take the burden all onto yourself. Right? And then stress becomes toxic. There's two types of stress. Eustress, which is healthy to the body, and distress, which is unhealthy to the body.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So you have to make the leap between being precociously independent, not into juvenile dependence, but to the center, where you can give and receive in equal measure. Right? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So the way to deal with toxic stress is to stop telling yourself the story that it's toxic and start asking yourself the quality questions of what is the hidden benefit? What are the 150 hidden benefits? It gets really hard once you get past 30 or 40. You're like, but it's like a meditation. You just gotta go through until you get to the end, until you get to the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
And then that emotional experience is cleared. It'll no longer hamper you. Those experiences have given you such a gift. The voids in your life create the values in your life. And you use those values to serve others. Right? So there's, in the way I use language, I don't use the phrase toxic stress because I don't believe stress is toxic. I believe the way we respond to stress can be toxic.
Mm-hmm.
And that has to do with the quality of the questions you ask about it. You ask, why me? Why did this happen to me? What am I supposed to do? Those are victim questions, right?
Yeah.
So ask the questions that empower you.
Okay.
Is that helpful?
Yeah. Yeah. It is.
Cool.
Thank you.
That was a good answer.
Thank you. Who's next? Quiet bunch, huh? Nobody has stress?
Does it have an effect on the nervous system?
It absolutely does, yeah.
But like a long-term effect if
Mhm.
you can't deal with it in the proper way?
It absolutely does, yeah. It leads to a lot of long-term health effects, and that's what I focus on in my office. Any trauma, injury, accident you've ever experienced is stored in your nervous system somewhere as a protective mechanism. So say it was a physical trauma. It can be a chemical trauma, an emotional trauma. But say it was a physical trauma. You got hit with a baseball and you broke your hand or something. The body splints up to protect itself from injury, right? And in that moment, that protective mechanism may have saved you from further harm. But then that protective mechanism stays in the nervous system after it's no longer necessary. Then you walk through life with a protective pattern that's protecting you from something that happened when you were a kid and is no longer useful in your life right now. So the work I do in my office is clearing these patterns from the nervous system that get stored in the function of the body so that people can clear out those patterns and start to develop patterns that are useful for you today. And that occurs on a psychological level, on a physical level, on a chemical level. It's all tied into one. But yeah, it doesn't matter which kind of experience it was. They're all stored in your body somewhere. So part of the emotional work is finding where that pattern is making you tell yourself stories and clearing that, like the work we did a little while ago. But then also finding the body workers, chiropractors, people who can work with you in your nervous system to help you clear those in a physical way also. And that's the work that I specialize in.
That's really
Just to clarify, so
Yeah.
With what you just said, would you say that's similar to say a kid when they were younger fell in a pool and drowned,
Yeah.
and now they have a fear of water? Is
Yeah,
that
yeah.
How it's relatable?
That's stored in their nervous system, and it protected them when they were a child because that fear of water kept them from drowning a second time. But it's no longer useful to them, and it's actually gotten to the point where it's hindering them. It's stuck in their nervous system, and there's no rational reason for it if they can learn to swim. So it's holding them back from the ultimate expression of who they can be. So there can be lots of psychological work to be done, physical work, exposure work where you actually get them in the water, but literally every experience that you experienced as more challenge than support will be stored in your nervous system that way.
What if it was unrecognized?
You don't have to witness it.
What if it was something that
Yeah.
occurred 15 years ago that you didn't realize was impacting
Yeah.
your present
Yeah.
lifestyle?
So if you're asleep and I take a feather and tickle your foot, are you going to twitch?
Yeah.
You won't realize it. You won't be cognizant of it, right?
Right.
But the nervous system effect is still there. The information still went to the brain, the information still went back to the foot to cause it to twitch, and the pattern was set in place.
Right.
So you don't have to witness the events or acknowledge them in order for them to have the effect that they have.
It's irreversible though after that long?
No.
No.
Nothing is irreversible. Anybody can heal from anything. Now, you do reach a point where there are the limitations of matter. So if I cut off my hand, I can't grow a new hand.
Right.
But it can heal to the best of the body's ability. I believe the healing comes from the inside out, not from outside-in interventions, but it's building the resources of the body, letting the body communicate. The inborn wisdom of the body knows what to do, and we don't really have to interfere with that process. My process is getting rid of all the interferences and letting the body do its work.
Okay.
Yeah. Again, my name's Dr. Ryan Marchman. Thanks for having me out. I love you all.
Thank you. Thanks, Dr. Ryan.
You're welcome.